My name is Elias, and I have spent 60 years of my life building a wall made of the bricks of regret. People say that a person grows old with time, but the truth is that a person does not grow old from time, but rather from the weight of those choices they never made. Every morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw a question in my eyes. Elias, if you hadn't made that mistake that day, where would you be today? This is a mention of a snowy night. London's cold winds were freezing me to my bones. I was walking on the empty streets with the collar of my old coat turned up when my eyes fell on an old building. It was in that corner of the city where until yesterday there was only an empty field. On the door of the building, it was written in golden letters, "The Library of Unlived Lives." My heart beat loudly. I pushed the door. Inside, the air was the smell of old books and the light of clay lamps. There were thousands of books there, but there was no author's name on their covers. Dates and decisions were written on them. "Welcome, Elias," a deep and soft voice echoed. I turned and looked. An old man, whose beard was white as snow, was sitting behind a large table. On his face was a peace that only those people have who have seen death from close up. "How do you know my name?" I asked in wonder. He smiled, a smile that was full of sorrow and lessons. "I know everyone here who is drowning in the river of if only. This library is yours, Elias. Here is every life that you could have lived, but you didn't live." He picked up a blue-covered book and held it out to me. On it was written, June 14th, 1985, "If you had told Sarah to stay." My breath caught. Sarah, my love whom I had left at the train station because of my ego. "Open this book," he whispered, "and see for yourself that if you had stayed at the station that day, what your life would be like today. But remember, every perfect-looking story has its own price." I opened the book with trembling hands. The library walls around me began to blur, and I started to hear that old whistle of the station. Change of scene. The old dust and silence of the library suddenly began to disappear. I felt as if I were suffocating, and then all of a sudden, my lungs filled with cold and wet air. It was that cold morning of 1985. All around me was the smell of burning coal and the coldness of iron. I opened my eyes. I was no longer in that library. I was standing on platform number 4 of London's Paddington Station. The blood running in my veins had become young, and my heart was fluttering in my chest like a caged bird. Meeting Sarah. She was standing there. Sarah, wearing the same yellow raincoat, the same raincoat that had become the shroud of my past that day. She was standing near the open door of the train, her eyes red from crying. She was waiting for me to say something. Those words that I had suppressed 40 years ago because of my ego. In the first life, I had turned my face away. I had let that whistle of the train become the music of my loneliness. But this time, I extended my hand. My hand, which was now free of wrinkles and strong, grabbed Sarah's wrist. Her touch was so real that my soul trembled. The warmth of her body and her beating pulse were exactly as I had seen in my dreams. "Sarah," I whispered. This name felt like an old prayer in my mouth. "Don't go. I was wrong. This world is too big and terrifying to live in without you." Beginning of a new world. The train whistle echoed once more like a painful scream, and it departed, but Sarah stayed right there. The reality all around me began to change. It felt as if a painter were brushing new colors onto an old picture before my eyes. Those hazy walls of the station disappeared, and we were in a beautiful small house by the seashore. I was no longer a lonely old man. I was a husband, a father. We lived those years like a dream. I held my daughter in my arms for the first time. Her eyes were exactly like Sarah's. I felt the salty sea air on my skin. In this unlived moment, I was the luckiest person in the world. I felt I had defeated the universe. I felt the library had given me the greatest reward. The dark twist, the real price. But then the edges of this beautiful world began to tear. One evening, as I was sitting by the fire, I reached out my hand to pick up a glass of water, and my hand suddenly began to flicker. For a moment, beneath that young skin, I saw that same 60-year-old wrinkled skin. The terrifying secret of the library began to open up to me. To bring Sarah into my life, the library had snatched something from me. I looked at the pictures hanging on the wall. From every picture, my mother was gone. In this new reality, my mother had died before I was even born. That career of mine, that identity of which I was proud in my real life, was not here at all. I was a person whose heart was full, but whose mind was empty. Every what if is not a gift, but a deal. I had sold the memories of my mother and the hard work of my entire life for the love of a woman. That sense of guilt began to eat the walls of this beautiful house like termites. Sarah looked at me, and for the first time, she felt like a stranger to me, because I had realized I am not deserving of her happiness. I was just a shadow wandering in a life that I had never earned. The golden cage. That hazy shadow of the life with Sarah had now vanished from my eyes. That blue book of the library now felt heavy in my hands, as if its weight had become equal to gold. I turned the next page, and in an instant, the universe flipped again. Now I was not at any station, nor in any house by the seashore. I was standing within the walls of a glittering office. In front of me was a glass wall from where the entire city, New York, was visible at my feet. I looked at my hands. They were now free of wrinkles, but an expensive watch was tied on them, the price of which was perhaps more than the lifetime earnings of an ordinary man. I was Elias Thorne, the world's biggest investor. People feared me, and at the flick of my finger, the market moved. The intoxication of success. For the first few days, I felt as if I were some god. I had private jets, palaces in every corner of the world, and every single thing that could be bought. I forgot that poverty and that sorrow of my old life, where I had to yearn for every single penny. I thought, this is the real life. The library has finally given me the position I deserved. But behind the glitter of this success was a very deep darkness that was slowly swallowing me. The terrifying face of reality. One night, I was sitting alone in my 50-story high penthouse. The world's most expensive food was placed before me, but my throat was dry. I realized that in this entire world, I don't have even one friend. The people who were around me did not love me. They loved my bank balance. I opened an old file, and there I found a picture. It was Sarah. In this reality, Sarah had never met me. She was happy with someone else, and she didn't even know my name. I had chosen wealth, and in price, the universe had snatched away my humanity and emotions. The breaking point, the death of humanity. The biggest shock hit me when my secretary told me that because of one deal by my company, thousands of poor people were becoming homeless. That Elias inside me, who once felt pain for the poor, had died somewhere. This Elias just smiled and signed. I began to feel disgusted with myself. I looked in the mirror and I did not see my face there, but rather a golden statue. I was alive, but there was no soul inside me. I was trapped in that golden cage which I had built with my own hands. I wanted to scream, but my voice hit the glass of that high building and came back. This terrifying truth opened up to me. If wealth cannot give peace, then it is just a glittering shroud. I called out to that library again. I threw that blue book on the floor. I don't want all this. Give me back my poverty, but give me back my heart. As soon as I stepped out of that golden cage of wealth and fame, the color of the book in my hands changed to siah, black. I thought that perhaps fear is man's greatest enemy. In my real life, I had always felt a fear of death. I watched my friends lose their lives. I watched my parents pass away. This time, I opened the page where it was written, "What if you never had to die?" In the blink of an eye, the world stood still. I was standing in the same place, but inside me was a strange power. My bones were as strong as iron, and my body was free from every kind of sickness and exhaustion. I had now become a body, immortal. The journey of centuries, the burden of centuries. The first century, 100 years, was like a celebration. I acquired every piece of knowledge that an ordinary human cannot achieve in one lifetime. I learned every language of the world. I climbed every mountain peak. I thought that I had become a god. But the real torment began when time picked up its ruthless pace. I saw that those friends with whom I used to laugh, they slowly grew old, their memory faded, and they turned to dust. I remained standing there, young. Then their children came, and they too became dust. I loved thousands of times, but every time I knew that one day I would have to pour soil over their graves. My hands became like stone from digging the earth of their graves over and over. My eyes had seen so much sorrow that even tears had abandoned me. I wanted to befriend them, but I was afraid. I had become a traveler who says goodbye to everyone, but never goes anywhere himself. The murder of beauty. One day I was sitting in front of a beautiful red flower. I realized that the flower is beautiful because it will wither tomorrow. A human's life is precious because it has an end. Our every breath is rare because it could be our last breath. This terrifying reality opened up to me. If there is no end to something, then it holds no value. I was in a gathering where the music never ended, and for that reason, that music became noise to me. I was exhausted. Death could not come to my body, but my soul was shattered, carrying the burden of thousands of years. Time had no meaning for me. There was no difference left between one day and 1 century. I wanted to die. I was a seeker of that silence which people call death, but death had turned away from me. The horror of the end, the final solitude. I kept walking from century to century. Humans were erased, the world's cities became ruins, and the earth became a barren stone. The sun grew cold and went out. The stars began to fall, one by one, from the shroud of the universe. Finally, I was in that last corner of the universe where there was nothing except black darkness. The entire universe had died, but I was alive alone in that darkness. There was no Sarah there, no library, no hope, just me and my never-ending loneliness. The darkness was surrounding me, but my eyes could not close. I filled that silent void, space, with my screams. Give me death, annihilate me. I want to be a human, not a god. I want the exhaustion of that 60-year-old Elias Thorne back, because after that exhaustion, there was at least the sleep of peace. Return from the void. My scream was still on my tongue when suddenly that black darkness began to tear apart. The silence of the universe broke all at once, and I heard the rustling of old book pages in my ears. I opened my eyes. Before me was the same old table, the same light from the clay lamps, and before me sat the same librarian. My hands were trembling. I touched my face. It was not soft and young. My fingers met my wrinkles. I took a deep breath, and my lungs filled with that old tired breath that made one feel the closeness of death. I began to cry. I grabbed the librarian's hand. Thank God that I can die. Thank God that my life is coming to an end. The librarian's lesson. The librarian smiled with kindness. He took the blue book back from me. Elias, he said, what did you think? That the library was here to give you a new life? No. The library was here to show you that your existing life, with its sorrows, its regrets, and its loneliness, is the best story you could have written. He gestured toward the mirror. You saw, didn't you? When love was found, the purpose was lost. When wealth was found, peace departed. And when immortal life was found, the very meaning of life ended. A human's beauty lies not in their if only, but in their flaws. The disappearance of the library. I wanted to say something, but the walls of the library began to blur. Those thousands of books began to fly in the air like smoke. The librarian's voice felt as if it were coming from far away. Remember, Elias, every regret was a lesson, and every sorrow was a sign that you are alive. Now go and write the final page of this broken life of yours with happiness. Return to the real world. When my eyes opened, I was fallen on that cold street of London. Snow was falling. The first ray of the sun touched my face. I was that same 60-year-old lonely Elias Thorne. I had neither Sarah, nor wealth, nor power. But today that weight was not inside me which had been pressing down on me for 40 years. I took an old picture out of the pocket of my old coat, Sarah's picture. I looked at it and smiled. I had left her at the station. That was a sorrow, but that sorrow made me who I am today. It was that pain that taught me empathy. I looked around me. A small child was passing by, holding his mother's hand. A bird was fluttering its wings in the cold. Everything was incomplete. Everything was going to end. And that is why everything was beautiful. The closing message. I took a deep breath and started walking toward my home. Today, for the first time, I was not afraid of my loneliness. Today, I had been liberated from the library of regrets because I had realized life is not a book that should be corrected, but rather it is a story that can only be lived. Describe your life in one word today. If you like this story, please like and share and subscribe to the channel so that you can hear every new video coming like this. Thank you.